I want to let you know that the complete build total for this 1984 Honda three-wheeler was What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Ed Gasket. If you're new to this channel, welcome. It's great to have you. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than the norm in that we're not revealing any new builds or restoring any of our projects today, but instead, I'm going to share with you every single dollar that I spent on this 1984 Honda three-wheeler restoration. So before we get to any of those numbers, I want to finish up this machine 100%, which means we have to hook up a reserve fuel line. This is a brand new fuel tank, and I don't want to store a bunch of fuel inside of it, so we're going to run this thing on reserve whenever we do run or ride. So let's hook up this fuel line, get this thing wrapped up, run it, ride it, and then we'll talk numbers.
Aside from my soul, there goes a sight, there goes a sight. Now there goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight from my soul.
Alright guys, you just saw me finish up the fuel lines and add fuel to the tank, which means for the first time ever, this machine is 100% complete. So let's see if we can get it started, because it's been at least a few weeks since I've ran that motor, and then we'll go ahead and talk some money. Smells a little like oil. Alright guys, now that we know the machine is running, we can consider the project complete and we won't have to spend any more money. We might have to do some tuning along the way, but all is good in terms of dollars spent. So let's get up close and personal with this machine, talk about the biggest purchases that we had to make, and then of course tally up everything and give you guys a final number. So guys, this build started in 2018 when I found this three-wheeler on Facebook Marketplace, and the previous owner wanted $405, I think, and I ended up coming home with this thing for about 350 bucks. Now originally I bought this machine because I wanted to give it to my best man as his wedding gift, and he didn't have a three-wheeler and I thought this was going to be the perfect machine. Now, as you can see here today, he does not currently have this three-wheeler because what was originally a wedding gift turned into a personal money pit. So fortunately I logged all of the receipts and the original purchases because I wanted to give my best friend a three-wheeler with a build sheet. Now this wasn't going to be a complete restoration, I was just going to buy a few things for it and then give him everything so he could ride the three-wheeler and also know what already went into the thing. And luckily I actually have that original book right here. So again, if you've been following all along, you know that this three-wheeler started on YouTube at least maybe a quarter of the way through the build. I don't even have any footage of me taking this thing apart or buying it or even the original reassembly because I didn't even have a YouTube channel back then. This was the reason for my YouTube channel because originally I was saving all of the progress in this book, and you can see I have pictures, screenshots of all the purchases I made, and I wanted to log this build, but about halfway through I started recording videos so that I could share with my best friend eventually what the progress was looking like. Now, of course, that sort of unfolded into why don't I just load these things onto YouTube so that way I don't have to save them on my phone. And the Ed Gasket YouTube channel was born. So once I started rebuilding this thing, I broke it all the way down, and of course the first thing to do was to get all the parts that I could save cleaned and powder coated, and I unfortunately do not have access to powder coating in this garage. Actually, I didn't even live in this house when I started this build, but regardless, I had to send everything out to get powder coated, and you can see it turned out really nice. In disassembling this, unfortunately, I found out that the frame was cracked and I needed a new one, so that was $100 on eBay and a new one was shipped to my house. I then had that frame powder coated along with the front forks, and that was a nice bright Honda red color, and that was $380 for that powder coat. Now some of the other powder coating was black and silver, and it was a combination of two different orders. The first was $296 and the second was $150. So you can see I spent quite a bit of money on powder coat for this machine. Now once the frame was powder coated, I ultimately moved on to the body because we needed a lot of plastic parts to start putting this thing back together. And of course all of the plastic parts are really hard to find, and I had to search all over the world for these things. This three-wheeler actually has parts from 3 different continents on it, and a lot of that has to do with the body. So in terms of the front and rear fenders, I spent $340 on those fenders. Now if you remember, I only spent $350 on the three-wheelers, so I spent almost the same amount of money on just the front and rear fenders. And if you saw the most recent video, I had to cut up that rear fender to give this thing a trunk. And of course a trunk is another really expensive purchase. So this trunk lid on the back of this machine cost me $155 because they simply don't make them. So when you find one and it's in new condition, you have to buy it. Now I found a bunch of parts from a supplier in Holland, and of course that was kind of expensive, not only to get it shipped here, but also with the exchange rate. I spent $390 on parts from Holland, and that included splash guards for the rear fender. It included the kill switch that's on the handlebars. Again, these were all brand new parts that I couldn't find anywhere, so I absolutely had to buy them from that source in Holland if I was to get them at all. Now somewhere along the way I actually had this powder coated red. This tank was red just a few weeks ago, but I decided late in the game that I wanted it to be white, so I had to go back to the powder coater, have them strip it and re-powder coat it for another $160. So you can see there's a lot of money in powder coat and body work on this machine. Now this build sheet has 149 transactions on it and 556 different pieces ordered. So we're talking about $3,000 just in powder coat and a few plastic components. That's a lot of money, and we have a long way to go. Fortunately, most of the purchases from that point forward were small increments, maybe $30, $40 at a time, but I had to make those purchases many times over to get all the parts that we needed. Again, 556 parts in this build. Another major purchase for this three-wheeler was the exhaust. So I actually found somebody in New Zealand who could make a near factory looking piece, but it was upwards of $1,600 or $1,700 if I remember correctly. And that was just simply obnoxious compared to what I've already spent. This thing would have been a $10,000 or $12,000 machine had I gone down that road. So ultimately I went aftermarket, I got a DG exhaust, and it was about $211 on eBay. Now the motor was another portion of this build that I unfortunately completed before I started filming all these videos, but what I will tell you is that I have about $800 just in the top end. It was really hard to find a cylinder that didn't have any broken fins, and the same thing goes for that cylinder head. Now in order to make sure it was in perfect condition, I then took my pristine looking parts, sent them over to a machinist who went through them and actually machined the valves so that they were a perfect fit, and also bored this thing 0.5 over. So this is a big bore, kind of. I of course assembled the motor myself using all completely brand new parts, and I have almost $1,000 in that motor. So you can see this is really adding up pretty quick. So I'm not going to go through 550 different parts on this build sheet, but I will tell you I had about 150 transactions that were averaging somewhere around $40 to $50 per transaction. So for those of you that are interested in math and can do it before I spill the beans, I want to let you know that the complete build total for this 1984 Honda three-wheeler was $5,886.82. Now that's just in parts. Imagine that I was doing this for a client and I had to charge my labor. This thing would have cost more than that. A lot of people don't know how much money really goes into restoring things, especially when they're completely obsolete in terms of finding parts. So I was about halfway through the work on this machine and about $3,500 in when I realized, uh-oh, this is about to get really expensive. But fortunately, I wasn't married when I started this build, and hopefully I'm still married after this is complete. By the way, I forgot. In my previous video, I asked everybody to comment what their guess was as to how much money I invested in this machine. So let's take a look at the comment section and see who won. So there were a lot of really good guesses. You can see the comment section was actually full of guesses. And our good friend Jared here guessed within what looks to be about $36 of the actual price. But then I scrolled a little bit further down and our good friend from Canada here guessed 7,600 Canadian dollars. So I had to head over to Google and do an exchange and found that he actually guessed within $32 of our actual price, which means Charlie Ventures from Canada is our winner, and I'm going to send him a one-off Ed Gasket cap. This is Hudson, by the way. Hudson is our new shop dog. Guys, I hope you not only enjoyed today's video, but also enjoyed watching this three-wheeler come to life from start to finish, because it has been a lot of fun. Now, we're taking delivery on a new project this Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe to Ed Gasket and check out some other things taking place in the garage. Hit up Ed Gasket Garage on Instagram if you want to see content between videos. Otherwise, guys, if you want to catch us between now and that next video, we'll be in the garage.